Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 4. Congrats on finishing up last week. So in this video, I'm going to be going through the week 4 assignment introduction. Okay, so we'll have two different programs that we're going to write. Let's go ahead and dive in. So it says type in the HTML and JavaScript code for example 2 from chapter 4 of the textbook and iLearn. Modify the code to display any message you want. The modified message must include the user's input. Validate the code and load it in a web browser to run it and test it. If it doesn't run correctly, fix it until it runs correctly. Okay, this last part right here, validate through runs correctly, you should do every single time you write a program. Validate the code, run it in the browser, test it, and make sure it works. So let's check out example 2 from chapter 4 of the textbook and iLearn. So here's example 1, and here's example 2. Okay, so here we're using an alert, which is a pop-up window. And let's look at our instructions one more time. Type in the HTML and JavaScript code from example 2 from chapter 4 of the textbook and iLearn. Okay, so you could just copy this. This is text, it's not an image. You can copy this just fine and paste it in your code. I recommend that you type it out though, because the more you type it out, the easier it'll be. Uh, and so you want to get familiar with how to do it. Okay, with that said, I am at least going to start with this template like I encouraged you all to make last week. So I'm going to copy this whole thing, hit Control N to make a new file, Control V to paste, Control S to save. And right here, I'll just say week 4 assignment 1.html, which is already the file type right here because of the code that I pasted already. And we have this right here, and I'm just going to split our screen a little bit so that I can type this out for us. Okay, so we have our head, meta char set UTF-8, a program to say hello, and then we're adding a new thing right here, a new tag, which is going to be our script tag. Okay, I would also recommend that you put this into your template. So we'll do that here in a sec. So we have our defining table. I'm going to copy this. This isn't actually code. This is just a comment inside of our code. I am going to copy this. I'm going to hit a space here, hold Control, and click down here to make another cursor so that all these line up nice and pretty. And then I'm going to make a new function, okay? Just like it has here. It says function greet user. I'll say function greet user. Notice there's no spaces in this function. If I try to make a space right here, we'd get some funky stuff and our code wouldn't work. So no spaces in function names. And I'm not going to worry about typing in these comments for the purpose of this video, but you can type them in if you would like. So we say var name, whoops, var name equals prompt. Please enter your name. Now, what the prompt does is it pops up a window with a label, basically, like some text that it can show you, and an input. And whatever the user types in that input after they hit return or enter, that's what will be put into the variable name right here. Okay. And then we'll say var greeting equals hello. We got some string concatenation going here. Name plus, and then we have a period. I hope you are well today. Semicolon. Okay. Now, notice in here I don't have it wrapping. Okay. But if you would like to have it wrap, you can just make sure to click word wrap right there and it will wrap for you. Notice this is still the same line of code. It's just wrapping in the text editor. If I expand this, it's not wrapping anymore. Okay. So you can do that if you'd like. I guess I'll leave that on for now while I have my screen split. Okay. And then we're going to alert greeting. Alert is similar to prompt, except it's not taking in any input. Okay. And notice that in here I just am using this variable name that we have, and I'm going to tell this program to alert that variable name. Okay, so right now we just have this function so far, and the only thing we need to add to make this the same as the program, the example 2, is to just add this right here. Okay, so I'm going to add a button for us. In this button, the label for it will be hello. We have a type attribute of button. Oops. And an onClick attribute to call our greet user function. Okay, And that's what that will do. It will look inside of our script tag to find a function called greetUser, and then it will call it. All right, so to run this, I'm going to right click here and click copy file path, open a new tab in my browser, paste. I can click on the button. See, it asks me to enter my name. It says, hello, Nathan. I hope you're well today. Awesome. So first chunk done. We typed this out. And let's see what it wanted us to change. Modify the code to display any message you want. Okay. So here you can see our string concatenation. Go ahead and just modify this string or this to enter anything you want. You know, you could have the user type in how old they are, or type in their favorite season of the year, or anything like that. And you could do a knock knock joke. You know, you could do anything you want. So anyways, that is my intro for this assignment. Now I'm going to copy this whole thing and paste it over here and say week 4 assignment 2.html. And let's see what assignment 2 is. It says type in the HTML and JavaScript code for example 3 from chapter 4 of the textbook in iLearn. Modify the code by changing the scripture that is displayed to the user. Your program may display any scripture you want except 1 Nephi 1:1, because that's the one that's there, I bet. The changed scripture must include the user's input. Okay, validate the code and load it in a web browser to run and test it. All right. Remember this validate the code right here, that is with the W3 validator that you used last week for your HTML program. But then you also want to run it in your web browser and test it, make sure that it works. Okay, so let's look at example 3 from the textbook right here. Okay, so I'm going to select this, which says greet user, and I'm going to hold control and click and press D. So control D to select the next instance of that selected text, and I can change both of these at the same time. So apply scripture is the function that we're going to be using here. We still have this defining table, but this time it's going to be a person's name. Create a verse of scripture for that person. Verse of scripture for that person and the scripture. Okay. So we'll have var name equals, and here this is a little bit different. Notice we don't have a prompt. Get element by ID. Instead, we're calling this function get element by ID, which will look for an ID inside of the body of our document. Okay, so it's going to look inside of body for an HTML attribute or an HTML element with an ID named name input box. Okay, so if I look here, you can see that they have this name input box right here, and it's on an input. Okay, so we don't want to copy this today, so I'm just going to say please enter your name, and then we'll have an input. Whoops, input type is a text input box, and then ID. This is really important. This is how the JavaScript will know that this is the user input that we want. Name input box. Okay, and then we'll just close that input. All right, and that's all we need right there. Okay, and so this will reference that, and whenever we click on the apply scripture function call in this button, that user input will be put into this variable name. Okay, and then we need this div ID output div to actually display something to the user. Okay, so we'll have a div ID output div. Okay, and then let's make sure I am going to copy this scripture right here, since we just practiced with some concatenation a second ago. Okay, and the last thing, instead of alerting, we're going to say document.getElement by ID. This time we're doing our output div because this is where we're going to output our stuff in our HTML equals scripture. Oops. Now, notice that to get a value from the user, we had to say .value after our ID, and to insert something into the page, we assign something to inner HTML of that ID. Okay. Now, as always, I'm going to copy this file path and paste it in here into our browser. Make sure that it's running. Okay, if I typed in Nathan right here, you can see it has 1 Nephi 1:1 there. Okay, and the assignment says modify the code by changing the scripture that is displayed to the user. Okay, so this is what you're wanting to change right here, being sure to include the variable name here that was put in from the user. Okay, so that is my introduction for this assignment. Sorry, it was a little bit lengthy, but I hope that it was helpful, and I hope that you enjoy this assignment. Thanks for watching.